Hello Book Club, hosted by Heather Skinner. Your December 2022 votes chose our January, March, and May features. For March, you voted in this beautiful quote. The music flows on the outer edges of my soul, stirring some primitive spirit in me. Its haunting vibration from some exotic location lingers in my memory. It spirals with the breeze down the cobbled street, merging into the ruins, floating out to sea, supplying new songs to the sirens, waiting to lure sailors onto the rocks. The ancient sound of another time and another place, drifting on the night, tangle my heart into knots. I always get so excited when I come across the quote you voted in for the read. And this quote I waited patiently for and finally came across on page 303 of the amazing memoir, Solo in Salento by Donna Keel Armer. Donna Keel Armer, I am so happy to have you here with us today, and I'm so excited to be featuring you and your work this month. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Heather, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to meet you and to be part of your fun group. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're so excited to have you, and I'm so excited for all the discussion posts that we're going to be doing all this month in the Facebook group. And I know normally my daughter Gemma, she's 7, she gets to be here and ask the first question, but unfortunately she is feeling really sick today. So I promised her I will ask the question for her so she can watch after and see your answer. She's very observant, and it's so funny. I was reading your book. She noticed that is on every new chapter page, and she asked me what it was, and I said that is a perfect question to ask Donna.
Well, if you look at the mosaic, you'll notice the Salento sun, and that is what we decided to use based on the design that was on the gate, which we have a photograph of later. So, and if look at the very back of your book and tell me at the top of it, is there a quote, a blurb? Yes, there's a blurb right at the top. So you have a blurb from a very, very lovely person who is a prolific writer. Look at mine and see what I have on my copy.
Oh, that is so neat.
I had just a very few of these printed because I very much wanted the blurb there, but just as a memory also, and because Jim was so smart to pick up on that and to know it's sort of like this little secret code thing, and we wanted it to place it throughout the entire book.
It's so special to see it on all of the chapter pages. It kind of just keeps that heart of the book, and your message is like streaming right through with you. It's so beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
And Gemma and I had also been talking. I love that your book starts with Once Upon a Time. And we take sign language classes together. And it's actually my favorite sign, Once Upon a Time, because I feel like sign language is such a beautiful language to visually see. So the sign for Once Upon a Time, it feels very whimsy, like it's just going back in time to start the story, Once Upon a Time. And you even have it in Italian there. So it's really cool to get that broad range of the words, the phrase. So I was curious, it's Once Upon a Time, you usually see it starting in fairy tales, and you're coming to that happy ending. How did you decide to start with Once Upon a Time?
Well, first, I want to thank you for showing me the sign language because I didn't know it. And one of the things that so attracts me to Italy and the Italian language is the lyrical flow and the use of hands constantly. And c'era una volta. It just sounds magical. It sounds like a happy ending, once upon a time. But for me, those once upon a time memories go back probably before I was born. So I can't say I have a memory of them, but I'm the youngest of 4 girls. And my mother read to all of us, and always the fairy tales that started Once Upon a Time. So she actually was reading to me before I was born because she was reading still to my other sisters. And that's the first memory I have of my mother and my family, is gathered all close, tucked around her, and she opening that beautiful book and saying, Once Upon a Time.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that you were able to carry that on and make that a part of your memoir. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
storytelling is, to me, it's everything. And to honor the person that tells the story and to honor the tradition of the storytelling is so critical. And the way we're going with all the technology, and people are saying, oh, I don't need to buy books, my kids can learn everything there is to learn without reading. It's so important to me that the word, the storyteller, is kept alive.
I agree. Yeah, some of that stuff in the news now is pretty heartbreaking to me. I heard recently there's a college library, I think somewhere in Vermont, where they decided to take all the books out of the library and the kids tried to protest, I guess, but it was already decided and too late. So their library has no books. I guess it's all digital now. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I heard that and I'm like, oh no,
I know,
I
I
can't deal with
know.
that.
I know, and we're right back in. We even in this small town in the South, we were involved in the book banning fight again. And I think, what is going on? The treasure of words and maintaining books, it's a timeless art. And I don't want to give it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely just feels like a whole new world all of a sudden, like AI writing stories and books
Yes,
disappearing from libraries. I'm not
yeah,
sure what's going on.
I know. I know. And of course,
Oh,
that brings up the fact that I'm affiliated with the Pat Conroy Literary Center, so I'm fighting hard to
yeah.
maintain that. I'm a docent there, and it Pat Conroy made such an impression on my life and his works, reading his beautiful works, and some of his books were banned.
Oh
So,
no, I didn't know
yes,
that.
yeah. So it's critical that that I fight the good fight.
I think it's important. If it's important to people, they need to be out doing it too. Because I heard recently too in the news. Did you hear about like the Ronald? I always say his name wrong. Dahl, books. They were reprinting all of the books. They decided to make sure they didn't offend anybody. But those are all such classics, and I guess there was enough of a pushback that they issued a statement recently saying they're going to print the original still, but then they're also going to print the new one so people have a choice, which I mean, I think that's probably the best compromise we can hope for with this kind of thing. I hope they can find more compromises like that so the
Yes,
originals are still out there for everything they're trying to ban, because that is getting very chaotic.
it is.
But moving on from that, that's a tough
Yeah.
step.
No.
I would
Okay.
love, yes, I would love for you to hold up your gorgeous book and just give everybody a description who's new to it and coming in to see it for the first time.
Oh, you notice mine's got yellow sticky things on it, and it's very well used for book presentations and events. I love the cover, and the cover was really hard to come up with how we were going to do it. And I actually wanted a trash can instead of a suitcase. But I have to tell you, my publisher didn't like my original title or my working title. And I think this is important for readers and writers to know that often your work, there are compromises.
Yeah.
But my working title of my book was The Importance of Trash.
Oh, that's so interesting. And that would have fit really well too, because you bring
Yes,
that around in such
yes,
creative and like
yes,
thought-provoking ways in your story the whole way through.
yeah. So, but that was viewed as a negative. So therefore, Solo in Salento was the compromise. And that has been a very difficult compromise for me, because people that are not familiar with Italy or haven't traveled there cannot figure out where in the world is Salento. They think it's Sorrento on the Amalfi Coast, or they think it's Salerno. And that's why I now include in my slide presentation the maps so they can see. You're in Vermont, right?
I'm in New York.
You're in New York. So New York, just like South Carolina and all our other states, has regions. I live in the low country of South Carolina. You live where? In New York?
Upstate. Yeah.
Upstate New York. Salento is the southern region of Puglia, and Puglia is like a state in Italy. So I learned after a few presentations and everybody had puzzled looks, well, I've never heard of that town. If it's not Sorrento or Salerno, what is it? Where is it? So I've included those. But the book itself was a book in a million years I would have never thought would have been written. First of all, I'm a very private person. And I've been back in contact with the first person who helped me. And I had given Cindy Whitman my very raw manuscript, and she had gone through it. And then we met, and she said to me, it's a really, really beautiful story. She said, but you're not in it. And I said, well, yeah, it's okay with me. She said, no, it's not okay with the reader. If you're going to write a memoir, you have to be in the book. I was sort of this vague third person that hovered and lurked in the background. So the premise of the book is I had reached a point in my life, and it wasn't the first time I reached that point. And I think most of us recognize that we reach points of plateaus in our lives where we need to stop and assess where we are and where we're going. I felt like I was still just kind of floundering around in my skin, not trying to figure out what is going on. And some very tragic things had happened in my life, and I had chosen not to work through them. Of course, intellectually, I was certain I had by just disregarding them and moving on. I'm a good one at moving on quickly and picking up another thing and going, and everything will be all right. Well, everything isn't all right. The seeds are planted and they fester if you don't address them. So at this point in my life, when there was some major conflicts going on, I said to my husband, I need to go away. Well, I don't know how many women or men have said that to their spouses or partners, but it's like, you what? What do you mean you need to go away? You want to visit your sister, your friend? You want to go to the beach for the day? What do you want? What do you mean you need to get away? No, I need to get away long term. I need to go somewhere where nobody knows me, where I can be exactly who I need to be, and I can sort through all the trash in my life. Unfortunately, I have a wonderful husband. Next month, we'll be celebrating 40 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So he said to me, you have my blessing. But we kind of made up this story because people didn't approve of what I was doing. The circle I was in, my family didn't approve. Why would you leave your husband? Why can't you go for the weekend? Why? So I said, well, that's when I came up with the idea. And I've always wanted to write a book, always have, but not a memoir at all. So I said, oh, well, I'm really going to do research. And that calmed everybody down. It didn't calm them down because I was leaving my husband, but it calmed down because it made more sense than just going off to be alone. It was threatening when I first said, I just want to go off and be alone. I just want to think through things. I want to even had a very dear friend say to me, are you leaving your husband? I said, well, I'm leaving him temporarily to go, but no, I'm not leaving him. So the whole premise of the book is about that journey and about the time that I learned who I was, and I finally found my own voice to speak with. And it's not a voice that likes to speak out loud. It's a voice that likes to speak through the written word.
That's beautiful. And, I love that you had that insight and courage to know that you needed to take some time for yourself, because I know, in today's world, it's coming out more talking about mental health and self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something really spoken about before. It wasn't, it was probably always looked at like, the reactions you got, like, oh my God, is something wrong? Why do you have to do this?
No, particularly my generation. I think hopefully you and the younger group don't have to deal with it quite as much. But still, I think a woman traveling solo is still kind of a what? Kind of question mark.
Yeah.
What's she up to?
It is interesting. I feel like, the more people who read your memoir too, I hope that'll also help with the conversations that are going on in the world now to see, self-care is so important,
Yes,
and time alone and for everybody. It needs to be
yes,
done in their own way. And I
yes,
think it's really, really poignant, and timely right now, especially to help people with that. I know it's okay, and it's
yes.
natural.
It is okay. And it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to say that's why you're really going. And that's what I do now. When I returned, I went for 6 weeks by myself. So, and Ray joined me the last month I was there, but it was wonderful. I experienced that entire freedom thing all over again. And it has nothing to do with my love for Ray, because that's intense and it will always be there, but it has to do with that personal freedom that you don't have day in and day out with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, everybody being there and weighing in on your decisions.
Yeah.
Or forcing those compromises on your decisions.
And even though it was a story to get out there, I am glad that you did make a book out of it afterwards. And speaking of books, I understand that you also, there's a cookbook with your beautiful photography in it. And I was wondering if you could show us that and talk about your experiences with that book as well.
Yeah, this is such a fun thing, and it's very old, really. I can't even remember when it was done. It's been a good while. It's been before my trip here, but Ray and I both we've been traveling to Italy. We travel a lot, but we've been traveling to Italy since 1995. And he was stationed in Italy, in Vicenza, when he was a young man. So he's always had this really strong pull towards Italy. So we both we cook Italian, we hang out with Italian people, and we've always hoped that maybe when we got our DNA done, we'd be somewhat Italian, but we're not.
Oh
so,
no.
but anyway, we were sort of honorary members of the Order of the Sons of Italy in Columbia, South Carolina, because we were so active in the group, and we were one of the few people that I had actually been to Italy. So many of them their families were from there, but they hadn't had the opportunity. So we decided to do a fundraiser, which of course was a cookbook, and it has the most amazing, what I call Nonna recipes in it, the grandmother recipes, which are fabulous. And I even have some of my Italian friends who contribute their recipes to the book. So I was on the planning committee. I was the photographer, one of the editors, the whole ball of wax. This is actually my backyard in Columbia, South Carolina. This is all food I had prepared, and then I photographed it. So it's all Italian food. I made the focaccia. This is the caprese salad and the prosciutto wrapped cannelled melon, and a shrimp dish, and an Italian chocolate almond cake.
Oh, beautiful. That must have been a really great dinner that night.
It was. We had a lot of fun, and a lot of friends came up. And then throughout the book, on every separation thing, are my actual pictures from Italy of the food that we've eaten, the markets that I think I have a wonderful fish market in here somewhere. Oh no, this is a market in Sicily, but they were just fun, and it was such a wonderful opportunity to know some of the members better and to exchange these recipes and these stories, because every single recipe has a story. Pat Conroy, and I will speak of his name very reverently throughout this, but he has a cookbook, Pat Conroy Cookbook. And I have yet to try a recipe, which eventually I will. But because the stories are so fascinating, I never get around to trying a recipe. They're hilarious. They're tearful. They're full of hope. They're full of sorrow, joy, gratitude for these recipes and stories that are passed down. So a cookbook is a natural for a storyteller, I think, because the stories come out of the food, even the utensils. Like I have my grandmother's wrought-on pans. I have even a wrought-on muffin tin, things that I have the pan that my mom used to shell butter beans in. So it's old and cracked and can't use it for anything, but it's the stories we told around those things.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is that cookbook available for people on Amazon or something, a place to buy?
It's
Or
not. It's not.
not?
It's totally out of print. It's that old. It's totally out of print. I've had all my friends since I moved here say to me, "I really want a copy of that." And I said, "Well, you can take it and photocopy it." But I even called. There's a wonderful lady named Carmela who owns Villa Tronco in Columbia, South Carolina, and I was sure because she was very active, she was president of the group, that she would have them. She said, "No, we sold them all, and then they went out of print." So they're not available. Sorry.
It's okay. That is beautiful, though. Thank you for showing us a part of it. And, there's a lot of food in your memoir. Do you ever plan on doing kind of a side cookbook kind of edition with that ever?
I've thought of it, and particularly now as I'm writing the mystery series, because the protagonist in the mystery series is a caterer. She's a low country caterer. So with all these roots in Italy, and every book has a lot of food in it, and not just mentioning food, but mentioning the event and why these particular dishes or the dishes that are chosen, and what they are. And it's just, I love that. Again, it's the community. Even in a mystery, you have to eat. So there are stories to be told, and sometimes murder is committed around food. So you never know.
Right. Like my mind goes right to Clue, like, the dinner party.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Things start, that little seed is planted is it my first book or my second book? No, it's in my second book. The seed is planted at a Spanish meal for a Spanish count on a beautiful lawn overlooking the water here in the Low Country. A tiny seed of doubt is planted around this beautiful Spanish meal.
Ooh, oh, I'm so excited. I'll be keeping my eye out for your next work when it comes out. Oh, and before we get too far in, you are offering a really exciting giveaway in the book club this month, and I really appreciate it. So I wanted to make sure everybody knows about it. You're going to give away a bracelet that you had made in Otranto, it sounds like, right?
Yes, yes. I'm going to have more made too when I go back, so I'll have more giveaways. But this is, let's see if I can do this. Can I do this so you can see? Can you see?
Oh, yes. Oh,
You see
that's
the little
beautiful.
starfish?
Yeah.
Now, the first book in the mystery series is called The Red Starfish, but my friend Kiara did not have any red starfish, but she had a pink one. So she did a little bracelet. Kiara and her partner, Antonio, have a mosaic shop in Otranto, and the little card will go with it, and the beautiful little bag. And they are very famous mosaic artists, and they do work all over the world. They've done magnificent murals, mosaic murals in Spain, in France, in churches. They just finished one. Did I send you the photograph of the one they finished? It's for a private chapel in Lecce. But this is a very small thing for them to do for me. So I feel so privileged that they would take that time when I was telling them about the red starfish, just to do this and present, to allow me to buy them. And on my arm, if you can see, I've got a bunch of starfish.
Oh, yes.
And Kiara made both of these, this one with the silver, and then this one, I want you to see the beads, because she did the beads for the book cover. I don't know if you can see the yellow and blue and
yeah,
white.
the colors look beautiful together.
Yes. So, and this one has a blue starfish on it. So there are a lot of starfish in my life right now, but I love this. And this is the gift that I gave to all the people who helped me when I was in Italy doing my book presentation, when my book was translated into Italian. I had these made for them and gave them. So I have this special one left. And someone in your book group will receive that.
That is so meaningful. Thank you so much for offering that. Is there anything specific you'd like them to do this month to enter for the giveaway?
Yes, if they've already read my book and posted a review on Amazon or Goodreads, if they would post that on my not my web page, on my Facebook page,
okay.
With the information, their information, or if they haven't read the book, if they would please get the book very quickly and read it and do a review. Reviews are so important to writers. We cannot get anywhere. We don't go out saying, I'm writing this book because I'm going to get reviews and sell, but we don't sell the book if it's not recommended by friends of friends of friends of friends. And it's so critical. If you don't like a book, be kind in your review, to say, to be grateful you read the book or have the opportunity, but that it wasn't a book that suited you. I see people are so easy now on Facebook or anywhere. It's like no one is there to see them write hateful things. And I was looking at an author, a really spectacular author, and I was looking at her reviews, and some of them were just mean-spirited. And I was so upset, because you can say that a book didn't suit you without crucifying the writer.
Yeah, so there's a constructive way to say, you know, maybe this didn't resonate with me.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would love to see some fresh reviews. I would be really grateful for those. So that's what it will take. And just write a review for me, post it on my Facebook, tell me where it's located, and your name will go into the pot to be drawn at a later time.
That's fantastic. Yes, thank you so much. And I'll make sure to put a post in the Facebook group too, to let people know and kind of remind them how to enter.
Okay.
That's perfect. I can't wait to see all your reviews that come in.
And that was the thought, because not everybody's on Facebook, and I'm not on. I have to say, I'm way behind the times. I'm not on Instagram, so they can always, because my email is available. They can always, if they've written a review on, say, Amazon, they can always copy the review and send it to me in the email, and that works. That's
okay. Thank you for bringing that up, because we do have some members that are only on YouTube and don't have Facebook accounts. Yes. So I appreciate that you have it open that way, so everybody can write a review and enter. And I just want to let everybody know all of your links will be in this video description, so they can find your website and your contact info and everything through there, and all of the wonderful sites where your book is available too.
Thank you so much, Heather.
And where is that the best way to go through your page and see where it's available, to then put our reviews after, as well as sending them to you or posting them on your Facebook?
Yeah, that's probably true. I have to say, I'm really sorry. I need to update my Facebook. I don't have my Italian translation out there, and I have not been, I have a private travel blog, and I've got a few of those blogs I've put on my website, but that is a good place to reach me. You can write comments there, or you can let me know that you've written a review and where it is. And
I'm thinking kind of the places, like normal places: Amazon, BookBub, Goodreads, Barnes and Noble, and I believe there's IndieBound too. Is that one where your book is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And always you can find a copy in the libraries. If your library doesn't have one, you be sure and tell them they need to order it, because I love libraries. I was on the board of Friends of a Library for a while. And also independent bookstores. I mean, those in your community, go in there and say, oh, I need a copy of this book. Please order it for me.
Yes. And thank you for bringing that up too, because I also used to work at a library. I was a storytime educator, so I got to read to the kids every week. And they are really great about if you go in and say, hey, I want to read this book, can you get it in stock? It supports the author, and then you also get to borrow it from your library. It's a
Yeah.
really great combination.
Yes,
And then
it
other
is.
people get to see it too, and then start to follow your work.
I know. And then the thing, and I'm sure most libraries have this, after you read it, if it's not a book you want to keep, you turn it back in and they can resell it in their used book thing. And
Oh, yes.
money will go back to the library, which is so grand.
Exactly. Yeah, it all kind of ends up working out one way or the other. It
Mhm.
gets to kind of travel and
Yes,
and support
yeah.
everybody along the way. I love that.
One of the
Um,
things that I used to do, I don't do it as much anymore because I don't take as many books with me when I travel because they do get heavy. But in the past, the books that I've traveled with, I've left them somewhere, usually on a park bench or in a cafe, and I always write in them and say something about where I'm from, and this is a book that should travel from person to person, and would they read it, and please pass it on.
oh, that's so magical. I love that for the people that come across it. They must
Yeah.
just that it makes it that much more special even too, especially your book being a memoir. Like there's something even more exciting about seeing something written from you in there, I think. I think that's really cool.
Thanks.
And while we were on the topic of reviews, I know sometimes that can be very challenging for people. Like they kind of look at it like a mountain, like not sure where to start. So I would love to know, what's your favorite thing to see in a review, like to learn about the experience that they had reading your book?
I think your very personal feelings are the best. If the book spoke to you, say the book spoke to me, I connect it with the author, I'm a lover of whatever the book is about, food, wine, Italy, adventure, whatever thing resonated with you, the solitude, the need for solitude, any of those things. And it only has to be a little sentence. It doesn't have to be an essay. Yeah. I think that's what overwhelms people is they sit down to write and they think, oh, this isn't going to look right. What the author needs is to know that you support them. And I think what you say, the smallest word, I'm grateful for your book. I've said that many times. I'm grateful for the words they spoke to me. And I didn't write anything else, but it's enough.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And that'll be really helpful, I think, for everyone entering your giveaway. Because once you write a review, even if it's just a sentence of something that means something to you of how the book felt, they can copy and paste it to all those sites where the reviews can go, and then onto your page or email it to you. And then, it's not, once you've got it written, it's not too much. It doesn't have to be scary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I know because I happen to write, but I'm not an artist. I don't paint. So an artist may think, well, having to put any words down on paper is really scary. But it's the simplicity. I shouldn't say we all. I overcomplicate things by trying to do more instead of less. Less is always better.
Yes. I hear you. I'm the same way. I overcomplicate and overword just about everything.
Yeah, yeah. I think you and I share that, and I share that in the book a lot with all all
I
my details.
completely identified with that. I'm reading that. I'm like, I do that too. I think I said that all reading your book.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I love it. And then, speaking of reading your book, I thought it was so cool. I did a browser search of your book title, and I've never seen my laptop do this before. It asked me, it popped up, and it was like, do you want me to translate this page into Italian? I thought that was so cool. I'm like, I didn't even know it did this. Um, and I was thinking about it. There are people who speak so many different languages that you encountered on your journey in your book. Has it been translated into any of the languages in your novel? And have the people in your novel gotten to read your book?
Of course, I can. I'm so thankful you asked that question because here's the Italian translation.
That is so cool.
Un'Americana in Salento. And the title is so hilarious, but I have to explain it. as my Italian publisher explained to me, she says, we have to change it because women in Italy don't travel alone. And I don't want it to be off-putting because most of them would like to, but they wouldn't pick up the book if it said solo. Plus, it would have to say sola because the generic, the sexes are on the ends of all the words in the Romance languages. So it would have to say sola in Salento. But she said, it's not gonna work. And I said, well, it's fine with me. So the magic is in this book, because having a book translated, I mean, that was not even in my dream anywhere in my life was that thought ever there. And to have this just come out of the blue, it's just so magical. But it's all in Italian. And yes, when I went back, and of course I had to return to Otranto. And if you remember in the very last, in the epilogue, I say, when people ask me if I return to Otranto, I always say no, and I'm not going to. Because it was so magical. It was such a transformation for me that I thought that can never be repeated, and I will be disappointed if I go back. And then 2 years later, my book is translated into Italian, and the mayor wants me to come back and have a book launch in Otranto, in the piazza.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's jaw-dropping. It's jaw-dropping. So, of course, I went back. I've tried to find all the people in the book. And of course, Giovanni is still at the Blue Bar. And we've got pictures of him, I think, holding my book. And Frederica, too, who was the main character in here. Franco, who sang O Solo Mio to me, was not. He was in, where was he? He was up north somewhere. But he was called and said he remembered me. Heavens knows whether they do or not, but they're very gracious people. And so the young waiter, Francesco, of course, was long gone because that wonderful, fabulous restaurant has been closed. You know, the COVID wreaked havoc with all of our lives all over the world. And that, for me, was one of the saddest things, to turn down that small cobble street and that restaurant not to be there. So those are the things that gave me some reason to be anxious about returning. But I am going to write the sequel to Returning because it was such a splendid time in my life. It's such a splendid time. But thank you so much for asking. I'd love for it to be published in other languages. I don't know if that's a possibility. It's hard to say with the way the publishing world is now, what happens. And my story about how this book got published is, again, it's just a fairy tale. It's not anything rational at all.
Oh, and I love that, though. It is a beautiful fairy tale.
The whole thing is once upon a time.
It is. And I love that it's still continuing to be this amazing fairy tale for you, and you're getting it translated and having these amazing experiences that are continuing on. So I think that is amazing.
I do too. I still pinch myself. I'm working on rainbows, I tell everybody.
Oh, I like that. All right. So our first member question, Sharon wants to know if you're still planning on writing the other book ideas that you mentioned in your memoir, like Pantaleon, I don't want to say it wrong, and his mosaic floor.
So this is my big news. I just recently signed a book contract for a 3-series mysteries. A 3-book mystery series. And I'm so excited about that. The first one, called The Red Starfish, will be out in September. Tentative. The publishing world it's like everything. It schedules goals, but we don't always meet them. So tentatively in September. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm already working on the second book for that. The next thing I'm going to do, hopefully, is write the sequel to Solo in Salento. Because I think that's so important to continue to show personal growth. If at 5 or 15 or 25 or 55 you had said to me, "Oh, guess what you're going to be doing after you retire?" I would have said, "I don't think so, not me." So I love the journey I've been on, even the worst parts of it. They are my personal journey, and I love that. So then after that, I'm going to write, this is a historical fiction. And I'm not going to reveal what that is because it could be one of those, but I also have something else in mind. And that's on the back burner. Just know I've written like a couple of chapters in about 3 different historical fictions. So I don't know yet which way I'm going. And that's how I write. I write kind of whatever. And when the spirit moves me, I feel it. And then I go in that direction.
Oh, I'm excited to keep watching for your work and see everything that comes out. That's so exciting, all the stuff that you have in the works, and congratulations on the contract.
Thank you. I'm over the top on that. That was so unexpected. And again, I would never ever teach a class on how to get your book published. I don't have a clue.
It's worked out really well for you, though. You've done a good job.
This contract was the same as Sally translating my book. I hadn't given up because I'm not a given up kind of person, but I had sent the Red Starfish manuscript for 2 years. I've been sending it out. Now I haven't received a single rejection. I have only received silence. Nothing. Nothing. Nobody even bothers to get back to me. So I had decided to try my hand at writing some flash fiction and some short stories. And I did. And then a friend had said, there's a publisher who does travel anthologies. You might be interested in that. So I went up there and they were looking for articles on London. So I wrote an article on London and it got accepted. I was like, oh, wow. This book was published in November and it's called London, Smoke, Blokes and Jokes of Foggy Town. And I had it bookmarked and took the bookmark out, but I have a piece in here on the, called Darkness Before Dawn, which is on the war rooms, Winston Churchill war rooms. And we did a lot in London, but that was one of the most fascinating places to see for me, to feel what it was like to live underground in London with the bombs falling on you nonstop, and how significant of a man Churchill was. He was a man, the right man for that time and place. Any other time and place, he may not have risen to the occasion, but he did in there. So it was on my heart to always write about that. When I found this publisher was looking for travel articles on London, it was just the right time to do it, and they accepted it. So the next one, which is on Paris, that I'll have a piece in, comes out sometime this spring, but I'm not sure when. So I went and looked at them, and they saw that they had a submission process, because I don't have an agent. I'm just all myself, and that's it. I don't have an agent, and there are not a lot of publishers. They're more are coming into doing this, but most of them want agents. Those big publishing companies always want agents, but I don't need a big publisher. I'm okay. And so I submitted, and every publisher has different submission rules. So this one required that I send the first chapter of my manuscript. So I did. I didn't hear anything. So later, I realized that they were going to do a travel anthology on Paris. So I said, oh, I'll write a piece on Paris. So I did. And I went to submit it, and the system wouldn't take it. And I was probably 3 or 4 days before the deadline. And I tried it 2 or 3 more times, and it wouldn't. So I thought, well, I'll just look for contact information. So they had an email, and I sent it, told them what my problem was. And they wrote back and said, well, just attach it and send it. I did. This goes on and on. You don't hear from anybody, and you just go, oh, well. And then I got an email from the publisher herself. I was so excited. And she said to me that she loved my piece. It's called, If It Waddles and Quacks, Is It a Duck? This is a piece on Paris. You have to read it to discover what it's about. But she said, I love it. It's so good. It's funny. It's a lot of food. And so I wrote her back and thanked her. And I said, I submitted my manuscript to you. And she said, oh, what's the title of it? So I sent her the title, and hear nothing. And then she writes me back and says, send me the total manuscript. And I did. And the rest is magic. It's just beautiful. It's just, again, a beautiful story. And she's a lovely person. And I'm so excited to be working with her. So that's the mystery series will come from that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad you hung in there, because the publishing industry, with or without an agent, I feel like either way you have long waits in between, like you're saying, of hearing nothing. And then you're like, all of a sudden one day, thankfully things have worked out and you keep hearing back.
Yeah. And what maybe readers don't understand is that even when you get a contract, your manuscript goes into a pipeline. And there are benchmarks, there are deadlines, there's all sorts of complications that go with being published. And those big houses, particularly, they sometimes can take a couple of years once the contract is signed to get you published. So it's agonizing for writers. We are writers. We're usually introverted. We're not interested in having a market and do all this stuff that we're obligated to do. And so it's agony to wait, not hear anything, or just get rejections and just think,
Yeah. I know, I'm in the query process myself, and it's a long, like, you wait. A lot of them now do the thing where they say, if you don't hear from us ever, it's a no, which is so open-ended, of just like, when do you give up hope?
Yeah, I know. It's really mean, is what I think.
It's tough. I get that they're busy and they get like just hundreds of submissions all day long. Like, people are just really submitting a lot. So I get they're busy, but it's still on the other side of it. It's kind of that, like, just send me a quick no, like just a no, anything, just to close it out.
Or even a cutoff date. If you don't hear from us in 3, 6 months, a year,
Yeah,
we aren't interested. Hear us, publishers.
right. It's a tough process. Like, there's a lot of waiting for authors.
Yes. Well, I wish you great luck well, not luck, because you're a writer and I know you're good, but I wish you patience, and I wish you success. How about that?
Thank you. Patience is the hardest part for me. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm going to need all I can get with those five. Thank you. Let's see. We have some more questions. Bonnie Jean Yepson Weinman. She has 2 questions for you. How did you decide to write a memoir, and was it really difficult?
I'll answer the second question first. Yes. And I think I touched on the first question about writing the memoir, and it really only came as a result of going to that writing class and they saying I had to bring something. And once I got that sort of stamp of approval that what I had written was really something that resonated with them, I thought, well, okay, I'll do that. And so what I thought it would be is like a book of little short stories about my travels. That's all it would be. It would be a little thin book. But every week I kept coming back with a different chapter. And I think The Last Supper probably was the second story I read, and that became chapter 45. So I had no clue. There was no, at that point, there was no thread. I hadn't found that thread on the tapestry that I could pull through. And that's what I always envisioned my work being, a great, beautiful tapestry. And on the back, it's really bad. It's got knots and it's got broken threads, it's rumpled looking. But on the front, it's beautiful. But you have to, the one that's doing it, you have to learn how to do that. So it was painful. And I think I touched on how the developmental editor said to me, great story, but you're not in it. and you're the main character. This doesn't work. I didn't want to reveal anything. And I can't imagine writing a memoir about my life. This was like a little snapshot of a little tiny time in my life. And I did a few little references to other times in my life. That was so painful. But the joy I found in that pain was I was able to put those fears aside. I was raised, number one, you don't get divorced ever. Number two, if you get divorced, you don't remarry. Number three, you would never marry the second time or get the second divorce. So I felt humiliated. I felt shamed. I felt a lot of things. And sharing that burden, sharing it, made it not a burden anymore. And the first people that reached out to me were women that said, I can't believe it. I've been married twice. I've been married 3 times. I've been married this. I was ashamed to let anybody know. Thank you for sharing that little bit. And not only that, but that the relationship was abusive. That's very painful to let anyone else know that you've been in this situation. I felt a lot of shame and guilt around all of that. So it was so hard, and I agonized over it. That's what took so long for it to get released, because I wouldn't let go of it. I just kept saying, no, not going to let go of it.
I think there's so much like strength and power that you were able to kind of take that on as your own and say, you know what, I'm going to share it. I'm going to shake it off. And to do that, because that is hard. I mean, just to have probably a conversation about it and then to put it in a book. And even like you said, you shared with the critique group. I thought about that while reading, because I know I'm in critique groups. And even when people come from the best place, sometimes it's kind of like, ooh, I can't take, feedback on this. And I write made up things. And you're writing about your real life. So that must take so much courage to be able to go through the critique groups and sharing and get it out there. And then, so thankful that you did, because I think like the people you've talked to, I think that's going to help a lot of people to be able to say, I've gone through that too. And thank you for putting that out there.
Yeah. And I'm far more open. Like if I'm in a private group, like a book club, and sometimes they'll ask me really personal questions, and that's fine. I can share that. I don't share that with the whole world or put that in a book, but one woman reaching out to another woman, yes, that's what I longed for all my life, was that strong female mentor. And I realized that I had to become that for myself and for others.
I love that. I love that power that you're giving to other people and to yourself with that. It's amazing. Bonnie Jean Yepsen-Weinman had also commented that she's never read a memoir before, which I think is awesome, because I had never read a memoir before either. So it got me thinking, had you read a lot of memoirs before you wrote one?
I have read memoirs, and I'm trying to think about this, because I don't have a lot of experience as a writer. I'm coming to this very late in my life. But I've discovered that if I read what I'm going to be writing about, it's very helpful to me. So all I've been reading for the last couple of years is mystery. But prior to that, I read memoir. And please don't ask me what I read, if anything stood out. The Glass House, I think, was atrocious, but really helped me as far as a memoir. I often read memoir. Certainly, I've read Hillary's. I read Barbara Bush's memoir. And I read, I was trying to think, and of course, Obama and Michelle's books I've read. So I've read some, maybe politicians, some celebrities. Churchill resonates with me, so I read books about Churchill. And that particular era, people that had to come through that World War II era are very significant people. And I like to read their memoirs. You find a great deal of strength and courage in them.
And then speaking of memoir, so usually when I go to read a book, I will look up the main character's name. That's like my thing. Like I always like to look up and see if it matches up with their personality. And I'm like, I can't do that with a memoir. It's about like a real person. It wasn't a made up name. There wasn't any thought into the, oh, what am I going to name this character? So what I was kind of curious about names in general for your memoir, you said in the back of your book that you did change some people's names for anonymity and didn't some others. So what was that process like for you to make that decision?
I only actually changed 2 names, and I think you're insightful enough to maybe know which two names that might be.
I definitely have an initial guess that popped right in.
We can talk off record. And I did that after a conversation with the publisher, because initially I didn't. And the publisher just said, you want to make sure that that someone doesn't see this as negative. And it wasn't my intention for anyone I wrote about to see it as negative. I just revealed personalities that I saw. Didn't even mean it was their personality. It was the one, it's my opinion only. It's not anyone else's opinion. And so based on that, we decided that we would change two names, but the others are all their real names, and they're thrilled. Oh, Frederica told me, because she's divorced her husband now. I told you that. She said to me, she actually WhatsApped me and said, after she read the book, she said, you need to add another sentence, because when her then brother-in-law put the note in my hand with his phone number on it, and I had written that at the bottom of that chapter, she said, I don't want anybody to associate with me with him. So she said, say a sentence that says, I didn't approve that. So in the Italian version, we're doing a second edition in the Italian version. So we added a sentence and said, Frederica was appalled. She had no idea this guy was doing this.
Oh, I love that you're able to make that change for her. And that's so cool.
Yeah, it was such an interesting moment. And I was so shocked, because Italians don't divorce like we do left and right. So we had a long, interesting talk about that whole thing.
And on the other side of that, thinking marriage wise, I know, like in your book, you said a lot of times that, Ray was kind of nervous to leave you alone. What was his reaction when he finally read your book after, or heard your stories? Because I feel like there were so many times in your book where you're like, I was afraid I was going to get kidnapped. Like, he must have been out of his mind reading that, right? What was his reaction?
Well, one of the things, since I told you we'll soon be married 40 years, Ray knows me. He knows my thoughts, and he said to me when he put the book down, well, I had told him, I said, remember, I have literary license to really make things sometimes larger than they really are. And he said, well, he loved it, of course, but he is not a person that's objective. So I know that about him. And he laughed, and he said, if I had known that, it might have been had a different outcome. And I said, well, I wasn't going to tell you everything as it was happening, because it was my adventure, and I wanted it to be my adventure until I shared it. So, but he's grand, and when I went back in the fall, he even said to me, because I told him, I said, come on and come with me. And he said, it's you. This is about you. This is your book. He says, I want you to go back solo, and I want you to stand there and embrace every moment of it, and not worry about where I am, what I'm doing, if I found a parking place, if I've gotten another ticket, if all those things. And that was so wonderful and generous of him. And it's what I love about him. And it's based on, as you well know, that we only stay married 1 year at a time.
I think that's such a great idea. And I feel like that must put so much more thought and just like really conscious decisions and discussions in place, that like things just kind of, drift apart sometimes, or you just get so used to a habit and you don't think about it. I think it's amazing that you kind of keep that in perspective every year and stick to it. I think that's such a great idea.
Yes. We're going to have a vow renewal. We're having a little party before we fly off to Italy. And a dear friend of ours that's a minister is going to do this with us. And she said to me, am I doing this for 1 year or for the rest of your lives? And Ray and I are together, and he goes, for the rest of our lives. And I'm going, 1 year, it's only 1 year at a time. And he said to me later, he says, are you ever going to get tired of doing this 1 year thing? And I go, no, it's how we've survived marriage, because marriage is full of pitfalls. And anyone that says it's not, and that it's all hunky-dory and happy story and happy ever is, I don't know, they're on drugs, I think. Because you're two individual people. And Ray and I came with so much baggage to our marriage. And we, at the very beginning, we talked about that. We understood that. And we agreed that the only way that we would overcome that baggage is if we practice what it was to have a good relationship. Everything worth doing is a practice. The writing, my writing, I'm hoping and praying and knowing will improve with each book because I'm practicing. My marriage has improved over these years so much that it's just a beautiful thing. Our relationship is wonderful, and I am so fortunate and so joyful that I have this man with me now at my side to go into these years together, and that we care for each other so much that part of that's bad because something's going to happen to one of us first, and we know that, and we talk about that, and that's rough, but we've had such joy, so we're okay.
That is so beautiful. I love it. I'm like, I don't even know what to transition to from there. That's so sweet.
Oh. And he's a good cook. He's a fabulous good cook. How about that?
I think that sounds like it must be a requisite for you to be with somebody. Like, you're so into food. That must be like the top, like, must cook.
Yes. You know, in our former life, we owned a restaurant and a bed and breakfast and a catering service. So we bonded over good food. Ray more than me. He's far more the connoisseur than I am. He taught me about wines. I knew nothing. On one of our dates, he asked for a glass of wine, and I had just gone to the grocery store because I knew he drank wine and I didn't drink. And I bought a bottle, and he asked where it was, and I said, it's in the refrigerator. Which right away he was suspicious, and he opens it, and there's this giant bottle of Reuniti, you know, which was probably $5.99 or something. And he closed the door quickly. And he said, I'll wait till we get to the restaurant. So he taught me about wines. You know, I grew up in a house that we had no alcohol at all. So it was a stretch to go from there to, but I really enjoy wine, but I enjoy it in the context of good food. And it's a perfect pairing. You have a lovely meal, you have the people you love around the table, and you have a really good glass of wine, and you have a wonderful conversation.
And that was definitely one of the questions I had for you too, because you have so many great messages like that. Like, you keep going back to the sitting around the table, which I think is so beautiful. That you've got your significance of trash, even the significance of mosaics and culture, and you've got personal growth. I mean, there's so many wonderful sit at the table together and solve the world's problems together. What do you think is like one of the biggest messages or feelings you want people to take away from reading your book?
Open your eyes. Open them first to all the things that are around you. Because as we talked about earlier, we forget about the very things, our partners, our spouses, our children. We all fade into the woodwork. We're there every day. We are expected to be there. We're expected to do certain things. So pay attention. Always open your eyes to the very things you have. That is what your life is. Those are your joy. Those are your best things. And then open them wider to explore the whole world, all the other things that beckon you and challenge you to move forward. And in the simplest task, figure out a way how it becomes a joy. When I make the bed in the morning, every morning, I think about my mother teaching me to make the bed. And so it's a joyful thing because I hear her voice. She always called me by both my first and middle name, which mothers have a tendency to do. You don't have the corners tucked tight enough. Now, let me show you. But I hear her whispering in my ear, and she's been dead for a very long time. So that's a very sweet message. But so those are the things that we need to pay attention to that bring small joys into our life. And those small joys become a big joy thing for you to have all day long, to treasure and keep in your heart. And spend time with people that appreciate you, that lift you, get out of toxic relationships, no matter, even if they're your family, no matter if they've been your friend for 45 years and you've let this go on, move away from it. Don't allow yourself to be browbeaten. And I did for a lot of years. So I feel like I have the ability to say that is walk away from it, hold your head high and walk away. Be with those people that treat you well, that care about you as a person, and you in turn care about them and nurture their spirits. That's important for me. And travel doesn't mean getting up and getting on a plane. Travel means when you go to the grocery store, do you notice the people? You're traveling, they're traveling, your paths are crossing. Yeah, there's potential, there's possibility in all of life. And it's beautiful when you watch it. And of course, as a writer, I don't know if you do this, but I sit on, we have wonderful swings in the waterfront park. I live right on the water here. It's gorgeous. And I make up stories about them. There will be a family walking towards me, and there's a dog, there's a baby that's crying, there's a little kid that's dragging and mad, and the mother and the father are fussing at each other. So I make up stories about what's going to make them happy today. And I try to do this. I'll say, I bet y'all would like an ice cream cone. And there's this great little shop just around the corner there that you can go to. And the little kid immediately, the baby stops crying, the little kid's like, and the mother and daddy are so because they're thinking, oh no, sweets is going to wire him up more. But it's just doing that, just reaching out across. That to me is the table experience, is saying hello when you get on the elevator. Hi, how are you? I had when I was working in what I consider to be the North, I was in a new management position, and they'd hired another woman the same day to be in a new management position. So we were across the hall from each other, and we decided that we were going to be friends because we knew nobody else in the place. And we get on the elevator, and we're going to lunch, and we get on the elevator, and I speak to everyone, and she flattens herself back. So she's in the very back, and we get off. She grabs me by my suit jacket, and she says, don't ever do that again. And I go, do what? And she said, you don't speak to people on elevators. There could be murderers on elevators.
My goodness.
And I said, I won't tell you where she was from, but we were like worlds apart. But we eventually compromised, and I let go of some of my friendliness because we were not in the best of places. And she became more friendlier because she saw it worked magic on people to be friendly.
Yeah.
So but it's so much fun to notice those things, to listen, to watch, to pay attention.
It is. I think that's a really great gift that people who write or make art, they have that. Because I do that with people, and I also, like, I'm trying to write a novel, but also picture books. So my brain sometimes wonders, like, what is that water bottle feeling? I just dropped it on the floor. So like, you can observe so many things you wouldn't think about.
You do, you really do. And as the locals here would tell you, because Pat Conroy lived here, and he was very visible, and his readers could come up to him if he was in town or anywhere around. And he used to always say to them, and we have this beautiful portrait of him standing with his arms open, like he's waiting to embrace you. And he would say, tell me your story. And people would, because he had that kind of openness about him. And the locals would later say, you might not want to, because it will be in his next book. So I just love that. I don't know whether that's truth or that's fiction, but I love that story.
I like that. I see a lot of like writer merchandise that's like a cup or a shirt, like anything you say or do will be in my next book. Beware, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, it will. You become like aware of everything around you. I mean, I'm looking at everything. The weather is very warm here. We're well into the high 70s and low 80s. And the orange trumpet flowers are on our pergola. And they, even though I'm really centered here, that orange just keeps, every time I look up, it's just popping there. And I'm noticing all those fine details, how each one of those is such an individual and so beautiful in that cluster.
And I think noticing those kinds of things is a really special gift. Like I hope that people, even readers, whatever their passion is, that they, after reading your book especially, that they take the time and do that. Because even just the way you describe things in your book, sometimes I just have to stop and be like, that is so cool. Like I never would have thought of that object in that way. Like that is so poetic for something I wouldn't have thought about for 2 seconds, like just a normal thing, you know? So I hope that that's something people take from your book too.
I hope so too. Heather, thank you so much for having me today. It's been really a splendid time and a very joyful time too. And I love hearing your stories, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more of them. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your time today. It's been so amazing hearing all about your journey.
Grazie mille.